Before we start, I just wanted to give you guys a brief definition about Kevin. A Kevin is someone who consistently or greatly shows a complete lack of intelligence through incompetence of social or societal norms or is purposefully antagonistic in their poor decision making. Now, for every likes this video gets, one Kevin will become smarter. So please, smash that thumbs up and notification buttons. To the story, Sensible Sam and Kevin. This is about a Kevin in my program at college. She was actually a pretty mediocre kid, mostly for the first few years. She scraped by in classes, had a few friends, and more than a few moments of pure, unadulterated Kevinness. Several highlights include jumping off a two-story roof to see what would happen, a complete inability to comprehend the difference between ice cream and gelato despite many attempts to explain it to her, and drinking an unspecified amount of espresso and spent the better part of an hour literally running in circles around the architecture building to burn off the energy. At one point, a boy about a year ahead of Kevin in the program took an interest in her. Let's call him Sensible Sam, SS. Sensible Sam and Kevin set up a date at a nice place just off campus. Kevin got understandably nervous before the date. Kevin's panicked response was to drink an entire large milkshake immediately prior to meeting SS. Kevin is lactose intolerant. Kevin threw up. For some godforsaken reason, SS kept dating her. They actually fell head over heels for each other and stayed together for years, despite the fact that Kevin suggested a lovely little downtown place for dinner, got horribly lost and could find neither the restaurant nor the way back to campus, has lived in this town for years, accidentally claimed to be single just after her and SS 1-year anniversary. Decided the minor effects of her morning ADHD meds were not worth dealing with all day, so she started taking them at night. Her ADHD meds are effective for about 6 hours after being taken. She was almost entirely useless until she went to refill her prescription and her doctor told her what an idiot she is. Ask SS how to spell his last name. His last name is 4 letters. They had been dating for months at this point. Found a way onto the roof of the art building, was not immune to getting in trouble after putting pictures on her Snapchat story instead of a group chat. Forgot her shoes on the walk of shame twice. Tried to take SS to meet her parents, somehow drove to the wrong state. Signed up for a class, forgot about it for the entire semester, failed because she never showed up. SS proposed a week ago. Still don't know why he deals with my dumb butt. I got lucky, y'all. Oh, this has gotta be one of the best Kevin stories I've ever read. This is so cute. He sounds like a keeper if he sticks with you through all that. Never imagining Kevin would be OP. Nice. The second story. My friend tries to divorce Kevin. When we were all younger and dumber, one of my closest friends married the craziest Kevin I've ever met. My friend had just come off of a very bad relationship that she'd been certain was going to end in marriage, when in reality, the guy was cheating on her while using her to support his wannabe pro-golfer existence, then dumped her when someone with more money came along. So she was in a bad place. A few months later, Kevin appears. The first time I met Kevin was when the two of them showed up at my apartment to announce their engagement. Since I'd met the previous guy that she was seriously dating just a month before, I know they couldn't have been seeing each other very long. Turns out, Kevin proposed 5 weeks after their first date. Maybe she was a bit of a Kevin too for saying yes at that point, but like I said, bad place. It's hard for me to accurately describe Kevin without dipping into being mean, because I never liked him from that first meeting. It was like he really wanted to be one of those hyper-masculine manly men, but don't quite know how. He liked to take any opportunity to bring up in conversation that he was a black belt. I remember the first time he said it because I asked, "Oh yeah? In what?" And he looked at me like I was an idiot. "Oh, in martial arts?" Oh, right, of course. He also would talk at length about how much he worked out. Turns out, he didn't actually work out at all. He liked to think of himself as a car guy because he had a sports car he couldn't afford and treated it like his baby. He didn't actually know anything about cars, but he had one, so car guy. But the thing that really got up my nose about the guy was that he prided himself on how very smart he was. He'd make the most outrageous claims with the most pig-headed certainty. He just knew these things were true, and if you disagreed, even if you showed actual physical proof that he was wrong, he'd just condescendingly tell you that you didn't understand these things like he did, and go on with his idiocy. Just as an example, he once declared that you cannot break the law at night. What exactly does that mean? We still don't know, and he wouldn't elaborate. As a second example, he had trouble getting a fire going in their fireplace when he was home alone one day. His solution? Mix up some homemade napalm from a recipe he found on the internet. It was a huge disaster. Set the kitchen on fire. Luckily, my friend arrived home in time to grab the fire extinguisher. Yet, he insisted, doggedly, that he knew what he was doing. And really, this was the best way to get the fireplace going, and obviously she didn't understand because she didn't know as much about this stuff as he did. Sorry, I know that's a lot of setting the stage. One last important thing to know about Kevin before we get to the round to divorce. I promise, Kevin was a religious nut. I don't mean he was crazy because he was religious. I've known many wonderful, intelligent, religious people in my lifetime. Kevin was a crazy person who used religion as his MO. He would randomly proclaim, "The Bible says, ... to support whatever other crazy thing he'd said. Most people let him get away with it because, well, the Bible is really long and says a lot of things. Who could say that somewhere in there it didn't actually say whatever insane thing he was claiming? And besides, who wants to confront crazy? Even when the claim was something insane like, the Bible says that the birds are of the devil. Yes, this is a thing he said one day when he was angry at birds for some reason. I was raised going to church twice a week, once upon a time, so I knew a bit about that particular book, and I had a pathological need when I was younger to call people on their BS. So we often butted heads. Unsurprisingly, when confronted, Kevin could never actually tell you where in the Bible it said you shouldn't take the first slice of pizza. Yep, he said that too, but it didn't decrease his certainty that it was in there. So, as anyone but the two of them could have predicted, the marriage didn't last. He became increasingly erratic, forbidding her from speaking to friends including me because, the Bible says so. Hitting her because the Bible says that she has to do whatever he says and that he's allowed to beat her if she doesn't, stuff like that. So she left. And here's where the wackiest Kevining begins. She gets a lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings, and the first thing that comes up is the house. They bought the house from his parents, more precisely, she bought the house from his parents. He had terrible credit. As a result, his name wasn't on anything related to the house. He also had no job, meaning that he'd never made a single payment on the house. As far as she saw it, the house was hers. His mother, who came into town to support her son through his misfortune, didn't see it that way. They declared that the house still belonged to the mother and threw all of my friend's stuff out on the lawn. Friend's lawyer gets preliminary hearing date set up to determine the initial dispersion of important stuff like the house, at least until the divorce proceedings gets all sorted. So friend's lawyer says to Kevin, "Have your lawyer contact me to set up a meeting before the hearing." A meeting is set up, and who arrives at the lawyer's office but Kevin, dressed in jeans and a windbreaker, claiming to be Mr. Steely, the lawyer. I crap you not! He decided he would be his own lawyer, and he'd call himself Mr. Steely, not his name. I don't know how the initial meeting went, but when the time for the hearing came, Kevin once again acting as his own attorney. This time, I can only assume he wasn't working under a pseudonym. Keep in mind, the rest of this is totally going off of her story to me immediately after the hearing. Kevin and his mother arrived 20 minutes late, not at all dressed for court, casual jeans and shirts. The first thing he says when he walks in, "Can I approach the bench?" "Why?" the judge asked. "Because I have some receipts." So Fran gets called to the stand. Her lawyer asks a bunch of questions, illustrating just how crazy Kevin is and how bad things had gotten, and about the house and stuff. Then Kevin, since he is the lawyer, gets to cross-examine. His first question, "Is it not true that you were beaten as a child?" Her lawyer, "Objection." The judge, "Sustained." The question had nothing to do with anything. Other questions included, "Is it not true that you were seeing a psychiatrist and on medication for depression?" No, it's not true. She'd never seen a mental health professional. Not sure if he thought he might trick her into lying on that one, or if he was so crazy that he actually thought it was true. He asked a bunch of other ridiculous questions, which her lawyer let him ask because they were completely out of nowhere and just helped to prove to the judge just how nuts he was. Then he takes the stand. Her lawyer gets him to admit to pretty much everything they said he did because it was all true. But he refuses to give specific answers to some of the more serious questions, not no. Just doesn't want to give specifics. Then, he gets to make a statement. His statement is how he doesn't want a divorce and also she was abusive to him, such as pinching him once when they were on the highway. Also, the Bible says that she is his wife, so she has to do whatever he wants and that divorce is bad. How can the judge make them get a divorce when the Bible says not to? Apparently, he went on this in vain for a while. She just gave me a couple of the highlights. Needless to say, the initial hearing did not go his way. She ended up getting the house in the short term and a protective order against him after he admitted in court to his violence against her. The Bible says it's okay, so. After this, he dragged his feet at every point of the process. For more than 6 months, he wouldn't show up things or would refuse to sign things until the last possible moment. He moved to a different city and apparently joined the Army Reserve. When Fran found out about this, her lawyer contacted someone there to point out that he wasn't allowed to be around weapons or something like that because of the protective order. Legal stuff that's over my head. The lawyer even contacted him and offered to drop the protective order so he could stay in if he just agreed to finish the divorce proceedings in a timely manner. Kevin refused. In the end, he got pretty much nothing and quietly disappeared. Like, I'm speechless about this Kevin. He decided he'd be his own lawyer and he would call himself Mr. Steely. Wow. To the third story. Kevin is not the father. I know it. You know it. Kevin doesn't get it. I had a high school friend who wasn't the brightest crayon in the box. The story ended with him living with his drug-addicted girlfriend who is pregnant with his child, and that's what I thought. I haven't spoken much to Kevin since he had gotten expelled from school, and our relationship faded into only Facebook updates on each other's lives. The other day, I was speaking to a friend, who we'll call Sarah, that still keeps in contact with Kevin. He got brought up in a conversation, mostly laughing about the ridiculous things he did in school, and then I asked about what he was up to. Now, here's something I didn't mention in my original post. Back in high school, Kevin vowed himself to celibacy. He didn't want to have intercourse before marriage. Also, despite how strung out his current girlfriend is, the only drug Kevin ever used was 420. I didn't really think of mentioning it in my last post because I figured he might have changed his mind and had intercourse with his girlfriend. Sarah, you know, the baby is not even his. Me, wait, seriously? Sarah, yeah, he's still a V-boy. Me, confused. Because he posts on Facebook all the time of how happy he is about becoming a father. Does he know? Sarah, shaking her head, nope. He legitimately thinks he got her pregnant. Sarah let me have a moment just to see the astonishment on my face. She went on to tell me that when Kevin first told her that his girlfriend was pregnant, she asked him when did he start having intercourse. Kevin said he never did. However, they did perform other things. Kevin truly believes that when his girlfriend hugged him during those times, it impregnated her with his child. Sarah and a few others tried to explain to him that's not how it works, but he's either just love-struck or just Kevin. There has been speculation that the true father is a guy who graduated a few years before us. He's black, Kevin is white, his girlfriend is white. She's about 4 months pregnant. I'll update you in a few months. Update. Kevin and I have spoken a little bit, but we're not as close as we were in school, and he's a sweet guy, so I wanted to word this so I'm not completely downgrading him. He's a very sweet person and I genuinely feel bad for him. Also, it's almost midnight and I have to get up in 5, so please excuse errors. Okay, so before I give the results, I need to talk about what has happened over the past 4 months. Kevin's mom and my dad are extremely close, and she told him that she was making Kevin take a paternity test when the baby is born. She wanted it during the pregnancy, but Kevin's girlfriend refused. Finally, Kevin did get suspicious by how hostile his girlfriend was being, and they got a court order. At this point, Kevin had kicked her out of his apartment until he could confirm the child was his, and she moved in with some random guy. Kevin still provided her with money and rides. I don't know all the details involving the courts or the paternity task. I didn't want to be invasive, but long story short, about a few weeks ago, Kevin's now ex-girlfriend gave birth to a little baby girl. She was white, but Kevin is not the father. Kevin's mom told my dad, who told me, and other friends confirmed. I didn't want to intrude on Kevin since I know it was hard for him, but I told him I was sorry and tried to cheer him a little. I don't know who the father is. I don't even think his ex-girlfriend does. The ex-girlfriend still claimed Kevin is the father and is a deadbeat who doesn't want to be a good father. I and few others called her out on her numerous lies on Facebook posts but was then blocked. Kevin is slowly pulling himself back together and I think he is doing a lot better. He definitely feels like a dumb butt, but he's doing good. The other day, we decided to FaceTime, and he was trying to remove jammed toast from the toaster with a butter knife, so there's that. I stopped him from continuing to do it. This is literally the plot point in Dumb and Dumber 2. To the final story, Kevin snapped his ducking MacBook in two. So rewind about 24 hours. I'm in the student common room, studying for my upcoming chemistry quiz. Kevin is sitting across the table from me, watching YouTube, without headphones, of course. Now, my laptop is a convertible. You can tilt the screen 360 degrees, allowing you to switch between laptop, tablet, and the sort of intermediate tablet with stand zone. Since I'm doing Quizlet flashcards, I swing it around so it's in tablet with stands form and start tapping away. Kevin, in the meantime, has taken sudden and significant interest in this feature of my laptop. Out of the corner of my eye, I see him experimentally pushing the screen of his MacBook Pro, the newest model I believe, back. I say to myself, he will realize his doesn't convert. But nope! Kevin dramatically swoops his MacBook off the table and ducking yanks his screen back with all his strength. Unsurprisingly, the hinge snaps and takes some cables inside with it. The screen is now unusable, garbled mess, and is swinging back and forth limply. Kevin slowly realizes what he's done and then proceeds to yeet his broken brand new MacBook across the room where it smashes into the wall and turns off for good. The best part about this is that he came into school today with a new MacBook. His parents got him a new one immediately. God help this kid in the real world. To be honest, I would love to smash an old Mac if my parents would immediately buy a free replacement. That's it for today, fellow humans. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. See you guys next time.